Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Karen Ivy, and I'm the Director of Career Services here at Texas A&M University San Antonio. I hope this isn't the first time you've heard about the May Center, but don't worry, if it is, we'll talk about all the things you can do with us and the staff that make up the center on our campus. Today, I really want to focus on resumes and cover letters, how you develop them, what is their purpose, and how you get started. And so let's look at those together. If you already have a resume or cover letter, get those out, take notes, make corrections as we go. I think that will give you the most benefit of this particular session. I'll also orient a lot of this presentation towards kinesiology, since this is really for you and your class. However, there'll be examples that I may pull from other areas as we go, because a lot of this is very relevant no matter what industry that you're in. I also will use some that apply kinesiology in education, while other examples may focus on research or taking it into a healthcare orientation. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I understand that on your screen right now, it might be very tiny print. The point is not to catch all of the content, but if you are the recruiter and you are hiring for some position, just want to ask which resume here, which sample resume would catch your attention first? Who would you be more likely to think this person is someone who I'd want to talk to further? And I'm sure you've built your thoughts on this, what your response is. Most people would say the one on the right. Just even without looking at the words, it looks more detailed, maybe a bit more organized, right? The alignment is there, the bullet points line up in each section. It's easy for me to find skills versus education. And the other one, it might be a little harder to find the things I need, though it's fairly well done. There's some information that's more personal, maybe not so connected unless you're doing some sort of outdoor sports position, and then maybe some of those hobbies would be appropriate. And then there's no details on the one on the left. What did you do in your self-employment, right? What did you do with drilling technology? While the one on the right gives me a really strong picture of what it was that they did, what they accomplished. I see a few numbers, which is always wonderful to quantify. All right, so let's break this down further. Hopefully we're all on the same page so far with what we like and what we don't like. Employers and recruiters are the exact same way as we are. So what is a resume? We just looked at two samples, but let's talk about its functionality and how we would define it. It is your professional journey on paper. It should capture your experiences, your skills, your qualifications as they match to the opportunity that you're looking to gain. And that might be grad school, that might be a healthcare program, that might be a position, a first-time position, or professional promotion into a new opportunity. So there's a lot of different ways you could use a resume, but it should tell your story as it relates to the opportunity. A lot of people mess up when it comes to this, and they think of it as telling their entire story. The reality is, whoever's looking at your resume is likely spending an average of, I almost wish you were here so I could ask you what you think. The average amount of time is spent on a typical resume in the interview and the application process. I hope you've written something down or said something out loud, because I'm about to tell you the answer, and I'm wondering if you'll be above or below, or if you know the answer. The latest number that I've read is 6 seconds. So you don't have much time. This is why you don't tell your full story. You tell your story as it relates to what opportunity you want to gain, because that is what that recruiter is going to be looking for most. Additionally, your resume is key for the interview, right? You can do great networking, and that is also really very, very important. But a resume is often what bridges you from being an applicant and interested in the position to actually viable in the candidate pool. It is also not a biography, it is a sales piece. And by this, I mean, you are there to sell the fact that you bring so many strengths, talents, experiences that will help you be a very good match to what this organization is looking for. Now, reality is none of us are perfect. You won't have everything they're looking for most times, and that's okay. Go for it. Talk about the things you do bring to the table and where you may have gaps. Don't talk about it in a negative light. Maybe just generally say, I'm a quick learner, if that's true. I appreciate training and I'm constantly looking to grow and develop. So maybe if there's one thing or a handful of things that maybe you have less experience in, that recruiter, that potential employer, or that decision maker will maybe see that as a potential easy gap to fill in the future. Also, with the resume, there's not one right way. Now, you will find people who say there is one right way. If you look on Microsoft Word, there are samples there which might indicate to you, hey, this is the way to do this. You use this sample, you use this template, this is what you do. Google, same way. You can find a lot of templates on Google where people will say, this is your way. But really, there's not one right way because you want to indicate and identify, highlight all of your best experiences, and you want the best of the best to come first. We'll talk about how that could be done and how you create that. Right, so what are the components of this document? Let's walk through that. So first you'll have identification, who you are, right? And just as if you were having a conversation, most of the time we introduce ourselves with a name first. Then you give some context. We'll talk about what else you might include in that, but you want them to be able to reach you. So part of identification is your contact info. Certifications might be a strong component of a resume. Maybe you're CPR certified. Maybe there's other credentials that you've learned and earned across the way. Great opportunity to sell those. Your education, very, very important. Most full-time positions still in our country require at least a bachelor's degree. Now, that there are some industries where that's not required, but for much of what you may want to do with kinesiology, a bachelor's level is maybe just a starting point. So give yourself credit. And if you're not completed with an associate's or bachelor's degree yet, that's okay. You're going to indicate what you're currently working on. Related experience, of course you want this. So we'll talk about what you would include in that section. It may not be everything you've ever done, but again, you're thinking about selling the best experiences that you've had. Other categories or components of your resume could include professional memberships. Maybe you've joined organizations here on campus or organizations that are citywide, regional, national. Many of them have wonderful student membership deals, so take a look at that. Also consider honors, awards you've received, maybe activities you've gotten involved in. And again, that could be your student organizations. And maybe you served on a committee within that organization. Maybe you led a committee. Ensure that you talk about those things too. Maybe you also want to talk about language skills. That could be very helpful because so many employers really want to see that type of skill. Relevant skills that could encompass a lot of different things that you bring that are specific to a position, and then possibly research experience. Many of our undergrad and graduate students, particularly graduate, but also many of our undergrad are working with professors and other people in our community here on campus, but also employers outside at research institutions to do some incredible things. All right, so let's dig deep into identification. Here's one example. The things I want you to notice is that the name is the focal point. Now, you don't have to make it this big as Mike Smart did here, but it should be bold. It should be maybe all caps. You could pick one or the other, or you could pick both, but it should be the focal point. The most easy place to find that information is usually at the top of the page, and that's where it'll be found. Some people like to center it. Some people put it on the left or the right. So either of those is fine. Any of those are fine. You'll notice contact information. Some people have asked me about addresses. Do we include those in the resume? I would say yes, mostly you would do this. However, this is trending away from the typical interview process. So you can get away with just your phone number, email address, and possibly a LinkedIn. The reason I think it's trending away is people are so mobile. You know, previously in the workforce, many individuals tended to commit to a location, maybe even an organization for many, many years. But people are pretty adaptable and move throughout the country, maybe even internationally. And so that is no longer a point of concern. And so, again, that's why I would think and share with you that I think it's fine to include it. If you don't want to include it, maybe you're looking to move to Seattle. Hey, if that's true and you're concerned that they'll see San Antonio and go, there's no way this person's going to move across country, then I would leave it off. Include your phone number and also a professional email address. Some of the worst things I've seen on resumes are beautiful, wonderful style, great content, but a really unfortunate email address. And anything less than professional is a distraction. It might make this decision maker who's reviewing the document second guess if you're the right person for the job. Consider LinkedIn. Some industries are much more on and involved that website, with that website than others, but generally it's a great place to meet people all across industries. And if you have a wonderful profile filled out that gives even more details of all of your great accomplishments, your strengths, your big wins, that can only help you, right? Consider that. We have a whole other presentation on LinkedIn if you're interested. I would also recommend, if you do that, that you use the link and create a specific link for you. It will allow you to customize that so that it's not just a string of numbers and letters, which is what it defaults to when you create your account. All right, certifications. So we're going to talk about this just a little bit. Here's some examples. Include the date when you can. If it's still a certification that is live and active and good, definitely include it if it relates. You can see, again, some examples here. Education, another very popular section. Every single one of you should have an education section. Sometimes it's the most influential one because that is such a basic need for that employer. They have to have someone with a certain educational level. So you really want to show, I'm a credible candidate, I meet your basic qualifications, and go from there. And so one thing to note about the education section is to go in reverse chronological order. If you've never heard this before, it may be a surprise to you, but it is a good thing. So here's what happens. But when you go in reverse chronological order, you're including, let's say, what you're doing now. So Texas A&M, University San Antonio, and then you work backwards. Maybe some of you transferred over from Palo Alto and you got your associate's degree there. You can give yourself credit for that. If you went to a two-year university and you didn't get a degree, you may leave it off because you're really focused on where you're completing or have completed degrees. Don't worry about high school after your freshman year. That won't be so relevant any longer. And include the school name. Make sure it's the official name. I would not abbreviate A&M San Antonio in any way. Make sure it's the actual name so there's no confusion. The city, your major, minors, dates of graduation, or expected date of graduation. We'll see a sample in just a moment. If you haven't yet graduated, list the date you plan to graduate, just as we covered. And if your GPA is over 3.0, you may want to include that as well. Typically, if an employer is going to screen for GPA in any way, it may be based on that number. Now, when it gets into physical therapy programs and some other high-level healthcare programs, that GPA requirement may be much, much higher. So you may want to think about that in a different way. All right, experience. This is one of the most important parts. So you're going to detail all of what you've done. Your experience can come from paid and unpaid positions. So let's say, which I know many of you have internship experience in your fields. You may have a section called relevant experience, and that may be the first thing you list there. Talk about all of your accomplishments, what you did to succeed, how what you did made a difference and an impact. That's the difference between just telling someone, I'm a really organized individual, and saying that you organized a whole system and the result was that the process was made more efficient by 25%. That really will tell an employer that you're not just saying something really nice about you, but you have evidence, right? So that makes it so much stronger. So where you can do that, quantify and talk about your impact. You also want to use action verbs to highlight your duties, your achievements, as you see here. Avoid was, is, were, are, just not very attention catching. Verbs you might think about are the ones that have a little bit more action to them, like conducted, measured, organized, tested, led. You see some of those listed on your screen. we can help you as well at the May Center if you need to come up with a few more stronger action verbs. Some other categories, as we talked about before, maybe there's an other work experience. I've also seen that particular heading as additional experience. So maybe you have a relevant experience section like we talked about it, and it has your internship experience and it has something else you did that was relevant to your field. But let's say you also worked at a coffee shop and you were in a manager role. That shows a lot of leadership, communication, and organizational abilities, which are transferable skills to anything you want to do. It shows that you were trusted with some higher level responsibilities. That's also really important. And it may also show that you're service oriented, you're good with people. If you kept that role for a long time, you must have been doing some things very right when it comes to teamwork and leadership. So consider this as a way to give yourself credit for those things and consider what have you done in those roles that would showcase you have specific skills that whoever the reader is going to care about. Your honors and activities. Again, think through dean's lists, organizations, honors, awards, things that you've done while here in A&M San Antonio, but also activities related to maybe teaching or the area you hope to go in, and include those, list those. That's really important as well. It also shows other people agree with you. You really are that organized, great, responsible leader that you're saying that you are. Special skills, again, languages, computer skills, anything that would assist you in being the best person for the position that's available. Professional preparations, and that could be seminars, workshops, anything like that that you just use to build what you know about what you're doing or what you hope to do in the future. Talk about someone who's taking initiative, another quality employers or grad school, professional school reps really care about. And maybe professional memberships. As I mentioned before, now's a good time to get a student membership because they are typically a lot more affordable. And as you get involved, not only do you have the benefit of networking with a lot of people who care about the same things you do, you might also learn about what's happening in your field, which will help you in the interview if you're asked about what are the current topics that are most important to professionals who do what you want to do. Consider leadership roles as well within these. Many times students have those opportunities. All right, so here's the beginning of a sample resume. We're looking at it together. We've got one SMART this time, some content at the top of how to reach one, certifications. I see a mistake. I hope you see it too. We'll come back to that. And then education. So we got the full name of the degree. We've got the full name of the university, date of graduation that's expected, obviously, that's in the future, and the GPA, which is very strong. You've also got some notifications of some academic honors that they just decided to put in their education section. You can also give it its own section if you want to. Right, did you find a mistake? There might even be two. I'll give you a second to look. One mistake that I would pull out is where it says certification. It should be certifications because there are two there. So be cautious and careful about how you label things. That's one I would certainly change. The other is creating an email that is more professional. Now you can certainly use your university email. That will be just fine. But you might decide that you want something more generic, like your first and last name, if that's available. And make sure it's an email you do check though, because that would be horrible if you were to get an opportunity and they reached out by email and you didn't pay attention. So here's an example of an intern position. We can see it's at a therapy organization. And what I think you'll notice as you look at the way they detail all that they did is that there are some numbers, at least one number, and you see some really good details that relate to physical therapy. So in this case, what a great way to showcase to this person who is making a decision about you that you're able to do the relevant skills, the relevant tasks. I also really like in the last bullet point, though you don't want to get too long, so I wouldn't go any further with those details, that they talk about where you can find how their motivation and encouragement made a difference. So significantly changed the outcome in survey data. If they had some numbers to talk about, like a certain percentage of change, that's always nice to include as well. All right. Here's another position that could be found in an experience section. Either just experience, work experience, relevant experience, or additional experience, right? Any of those titles can work depending on how you divide out your experience sections. Please note as we talk about experience that also, just like your education, should be in reverse chronological order. So you can be pretty crafty. If you have relevant experience, you might have that section first, pull everything out, and then additional experience, even if it's more current and you're working from most recent to least, it won't get in the way of them seeing all of your best experiences first. If that doesn't make sense, definitely come see us. We'll talk about this more. So here you see something that's much more education oriented. You do see a couple of numbers, so they've quantified, which is great. Consider this. Also pay attention to those action verbs: gained, instructed, supervised. Those all are very strong action verbs and will gain the attention of the person reading it. In fact, they've done research studies on that. It really does make a difference what you start your phrases with. Notice that none of these include full sentences. You don't want to do that because this person is going to read at a pretty fast pace. We know 6 seconds, right? Those action verbs draw attention, and so you use them purposefully rather than a full and complete sentence. And then you detail it with relevant experience. Here's some pitfalls, so avoid these things. You don't want to get too long and excessive, right? You don't want to tell everything. Unnecessary content is just distracting. And sometimes employers will be so quick with their review that they may not get to the really good stuff, the more relevant things that you really want them to see. Now, on the other side, it's almost like you can't win, right? Don't go too long, but also don't go too short. Many people try to be so brief, just like that very first resume that we saw when we had 2 up on the screen. The one on the left, what could we really learn about that candidate? There wasn't enough detail for us to be able to even really understand what he or she brought to the table. A poor layout or physical appearance or poor printing, most of the time you're going to submit these online, but consider those things. If it's hard to find certain sections, if the bullet points don't align, if it just looks sloppy, a lot of employers will think if their work is sloppy here, their work will be sloppy with us. So let's just skip it. Misspell words, bad grammar, poor punctuation, believe it or not, these things really do matter, and people will make a judgment based on this. If you don't know where commas go, if you don't spell things exactly right, there's been some funny examples I could give you. If we meet in person, I will tell you some examples of things that we caught because we're here to do some reviews before those resumes go out. We want to catch those so we ensure, words, well, we'll talk in person. Lengthy sentences and paragraphs. Again, paragraphs are not probably going to be read. There are 1 or 2 exceptions. Might as well tell you now. The federal government likes paragraphs. However, they're the only organization that I know of that likes that style. So if you are looking at a federal position with the government, let's talk more because your resume will look a little different. The other thing you may notice that's different than a resume is a CV. Many of your professors have CVs. Those are less worried about being so focused. A CV, by its definition, is one's life journey. That's how it translates. And it's meant to show a complete work history. And so that's a little different as well. So when you're applying for a professor position or a strong research position, that might be something we talk about as well. Too many dates or numbers, which make it difficult to read. Most of the time, the problem is on the other side, not enough numbers. Think about some other things too that could be distracting. One is underlining. Researchers have found that underlined text is much harder to read quickly. So avoid that where you can. Some underlines between sections really can help just deviate between the 2 sections, and that's fine, but I would not overuse it. And then critical categories missing. Let's say you leave out education, for instance. That won't go so well. Don't make your interviewer, don't make your representative, whoever's looking at this, have to go search this out in your application information. All right. I hope we've covered a lot that will help you with your resume. We have samples ready to go. Again, we have a team of people who love doing this with you. We even have a grad student who works with us and multiple other student employees who have been trained to help you if you have an interest in meeting with one of them. But we also have professional staff that are here and ready to help you with your journey in your resume or taking your resume from where it is to where it maybe could be if we add some improvements. Now the cover letter. Let me confess something right off the top. When I first got into career advising, career coaching, I had a lot of questions about the cover letter. In many ways, that's a document that seems very redundant, right? So you've included a lot of information about who you are in your resume. You've probably included a lot of that information in your application as well. So why are we repeating it again in a cover letter? Well, let's talk about why, because there were some very good answers to that question as I dug a little deeper. So what is the cover letter? It really expresses your interest in a position. It showcases your qualifications, and it really highlights some other things as well. So let's keep going and find out what those other things are. It should accomplish a few things. It should restate the main points of your resume. Yes, again, we're going to restate all of your transferable skills, highlights of your experience, and help sell all you have to bring to a prospective employer or a graduate or professional school rep. When you organize your letter, it should be no longer than one type page. Again, we know most people are not spending a lot of time on these, so keep it concise. Organize your paragraphs, emphasize most strong and relevant qualifications and experiences. So that might mean pulling your top 2 or 3 strongest qualifications from your resume. And then make it easy for them to scan. Begin each of your paragraphs, typically it's 3, but it could be 4, with a topic sentence. If you need help with this, we're also here to help you, but the Writing Center is also a very good resource on our campus. All right, so your header, a few important points as you start your cover letter. Make sure you address your letter to a specific person. Now, you don't always know that information. You may not know Emma Markley is the Human Resources Director for the organization you're applying to. But take a look at the website, maybe look at the job posting. I would highly recommend as you apply for things that you copy down that job posting. It will help you so much for the interview later anyway, but look at that, look for details on the page where the posting is. Is there a contact name over on the side? Many times you can find those things as you are looking at great opportunities. If you don't know, you can certainly call and ask for the person's name who's associated with that position. And that could either be an HR person or it might also be the supervisor of the position. And so either would be fine to address it to. And many times they'll disclose that information. Now, if you don't have a way to find out who this person is, what I would recommend, let's just say you're applying to Nike. There's a position that you're really interested in about how shoes and research about shoes impact movement in the body. All right, so you find this incredible job. You cannot find a name anywhere. I would suggest as another option is instead of saying, Dear Miss Markley, of course you don't have a name, you could say, Dear Nike Hiring Committee. At least you're addressing the corporation. In fact, you might even say, Dear Nike Corporation Hiring Committee or Hiring Manager, so that they know you took the time to talk to specifically them. This is not your base cover letter that you give to every single employer that happens to have a position that you're interested in. Hopefully that helps out a little bit. All right, your introductory paragraph. Get the reader's attention, get some interest, but be appropriate. So I saw a recent cover letter that was considered a really bad idea where the person started with a very attention-grabbing statement. It said something like, I'm sure you're tired. I'm tired too. And went on to say something like, let's stop this search. You've already found the candidate you're looking for. Now, it is very salesy, but this is not the kind of sales that we're talking about. So you want to introduce yourself. Maybe you know someone within the organization who suggested you apply. So you could say, Dr. So-and-so recommended this position to me, and as I researched more about it, I became more and more excited at the potential of working with your organization. All right, so if Dr. whoever that was has a good relationship with this organization, which we can probably guess that he or she does, that gives you some bonus points right there. Now, if you do name drop, which is what that's called, I would make sure that professor is okay, or whoever that contact is okay with you mentioning their name. So ask them first before you do that. That might grab some attention. Make your goal clear. Definitely state the name of the position you're applying to, just in case your cover letter gets separated from the rest of your materials. Let's say they print it out and you're a top candidate, make it easy on them. So you might indicate, I am very interested in the physical therapy internship position. And preview the rest of your letter. Highlight your qualifications again, just like we talked about before. Here's an example. I won't read it to you, but I'll give you a minute to take a look. It gives a lot of specific content. It talks about their excitement. It connects with the actual position and the organization that's hosting it. And some qualifications that should be highlighted because they're very important and relevant to the position. So take a look. All right, if you didn't have enough time, pause the video. You can definitely take some more time reading it, looking at it, borrowing some of the ideas from it. Moving along, as you head into the rest of the paragraphs, you're going to highlight your qualifications. You're going to demonstrate how those qualifications will benefit that employer or that organization and refer employers to your enclosed resume. All right, so let's take a look at that. As you detail your experience, show the employers your qualifications. So again, don't say, I am the best candidate that you'll find in all of the candidates you have. Well, let's talk about what that means, right? What skills, qualifications, experiences, strengths do you bring? Maybe you're a person who builds rapport with others very quickly, and that will serve you well in a role that you want to take on. So let's say you want to be a coach within a school, and building rapport with students or a classroom, really great experience and skill to bring to that opportunity. Also managing a group of young people, really important skill. So talk about that. Also, don't forget, include examples, just like it says on your screen, of when you've done that kind of work, when you've built that skill and used it and it's made a great impact, or it's been something you've been able to sharpen and grow. Again, use numbers, be specific as you can, as often as you can as it relates. And then tell and sell. So we want to see what that looks like. Take a look at this paragraph. And again, I'll stop talking so you have a minute to read it. Pause the screen if you need a little more time. All right, we're going to move on. As you conclude your letter, you're going to ask for an interview in one way or another. You're going to be specific about how the interviewer should contact you. Also include a thank you. Thank them for their time and consideration. So as we take a look, here's one example of how you can do that. Do you see the issue? We left a mistake in here to see if you could find it. All right, did you find the mistake? I hope you did. These are the things you want to see and find. Always have a proofreader, or you'll have things like this. I see, thank you for your time and consideration 2 times. We purposely wanted to leave a few things like that because it's so easy to do. You could have minor mistakes that have big impact. This one probably wouldn't make a huge impact, but it might make you look a little bit careless. All right, moving along. Here are a few key points to remember. You can appeal to the organization's values, attitudes, goals, and projects. I really like this. So when I asked the relevancy of a cover letter, as I was telling you at the beginning of this part of our presentation, this was probably the most important answer that I found in my research. You know, in your resume and application, you can't say things like, I know one of your core values with your school district is X, and I really relate to this value because of this. You also couldn't say something like, I was looking at your research institution and I noticed you just received a grant in this particular area. In addition to the skills I could bring to this particular role, I would be happy to also bring my experience with grant projects to assist in this if it was relevant. Something like that. Elaborate on the information in your resume, right? So again, they'll get to see more of who you are and what you do. And provide evidence of your qualifications. Proofread it so carefully for any sort of mistake or error. All right, we've talked about resumes. We have talked about cover letters. I hope this was very helpful to you. Again, I want to reiterate, the Maze Center is here for you. We're very excited to be a support and encouragement to you while you're here and also after you graduate. So that's right. The Maze Center has 3 different areas. The one I represent is career services. So we do a lot of one-on-one appointments. We do big networking events, career fairs. We also have fun presentations, interactive games, you name it, we may have tried it. But one of the things I want you to know is as an alumni, there are many times where maybe you didn't get the position you thought you were going to get, or you got the position you wanted and changed your mind about what you want to do next. We want to be here to support you. So we do see alumni all the time. Come back, meet with us. We have phone appointments, we have virtual appointments, and in-person appointments. As long as it's safe, we'll have all 3 options continue on. To make an appointment with us or to find out more of what we have going on, there's 3 ways you can do that. That might be the most easy. One is to call us. The number is on the screen, and call us during business hours. We'll get you connected with information or an appointment. You can also email us at maze@tinmusa.edu. This is a great way to get quick answers to questions. And Handshake. Handshake is the portal where many postings of internships and jobs are for this campus community. In fact, we do a lot of vetting. We make sure we do our very best to make sure that these are all great experiences that will connect with your major. And so take a look at what's in there. While you're in that portal, at the top, you'll see something that says Career Center at the top header. Drop down from there after you click on it, and it will have schedule an appointment as an option. So you can do that specifically through that portal anytime you'd like. It will show you when we're available and when you can come in. Again, thanks for your time and attention. I hope this was helpful, and I cannot wait to talk to you more. We can't wait to work with you, help you as you go along this journey. And we also really love celebrating you when you get that internship, when you get that job, or when you get into that graduate or professional program. All the best. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye.